for localized conditions such as cancer tumors, stroke, atherosclerotic plaque buildup, localized pain, and many other conditions, there is a real need to have a microrobotic, precise, remote-controlled mechanism that can treat a condition only at a specific point and nowhere else.
Presented by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. Co-powered by Sera. This is your space. Play it your way.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination news. Newsmakers, talking points, the big talking points. Should Rajiv Gandhi's killer's release be reviewed by the Supreme Court? That's the question we are going to raise tonight. Abhishek Singhvi, the Congress's legal eagle, is among my guests tonight on that big issue. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. More proof of abuse surfaces in the Delhi horrific butchery case. WhatsApp chats reveal Shraddha confided in colleagues and friends that she was repeatedly assaulted and battered by Aftab. Supreme Court junks the NIA's plea and refuses to recall house arrest order for activist Gautam Navlakha. Top court orders that Navlakha be placed under house arrest within 24 hours. The NIA had objected to it. The Gujarat High Court Bar Association lawyers to meet Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud on Monday over their protest against the transfer of Justice Nikhil Kariyal from Gujarat to the Patna High Court. Trouble mounts for Rahul Gandhi over his Savarkar remarks. Shinde Sena leader files a police complaint. Protests against Congress MP in Maharashtra. Shiv Sena warns Savarkar could become an issue that will divide the Mahavikas Aghadi. Historic moment for India, country's first privately developed rocket Vikram S launched from Sriharikota successfully. BJP MP Arvind Dharmapuri's house vandalized, effigies burned by TRS workers for claiming KCR's daughter K. Kavita held a secret conversation with Congress President Kharge to switch sides. Twitter on the brink of collapse. Several employees and top engineers walk out of the door after Elon Musk's ultimatum, but Chief Twit not concerned, says the best people are still there. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman given US immunity over journalist Jamal Khashoggi's killing in 2018, immunity due to his new role as Saudi PM. And Qatar makes a U-turn on its alcohol rules 2 days before FIFA World Cup begins. No alcohol to be served inside the stadium. Fans asked to dress modestly according to the new rules. But our top focus tonight. The Narendra Modi government late last night moved the Supreme Court seeking a review of its order freeing all the convicts in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. The centre has said the order was passed without hearing its side. The Congress, which had criticized the Supreme Court order, has now called the Modi government's move a belated one. Even so, there is a question mark now over what happens to the convicts who've already been released. Tonight's top story is a close look at the law behind the release of Rajiv Gandhi's assassination convicts. Take a look.
Day after 6 convicts in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case walked out of jail, the Narendra Modi government has sought a review of the Supreme Court order that granted them release. The centre in its review plea has called the SC ruling a legally flawed judgment. The government says the convicts did not formally implead the Union of India as a respondent in their petition, because of which the government could not present its views in the matter. The centre also challenged the court using its earlier verdict to release Perarivalan to free other convicts. The government argues majority of the remaining convicts are foreign citizens who played a more serious role in the killings. The review plea puts a cloud on the future of Nalini Sriharan, Murugan, Robert Pies, Ravi Chandran and Jay Kumar, who were released last week.
The center is always politicizing the case because the real culprits are still out there. So it is easy to frame and put us in the jail and show the world we are the real culprits. That's what they are trying to do.
The Congress, which had criticized the Supreme Court order releasing the convicts, accused the BJP of treating the matter casually.
They should have asked for an adjournment motion, adjournment, and they should have asked the date to be shifted to some other date. But the union government has just left the case to the mercy of those convicts. And now they are saying that we are going for a review. It's a drama. And when the horse is out of the bolt, what they are going to do it now.
The BJP, on the other hand, lashed out at the Congress for staying in alliance with the DMK, which welcomed the release.
Congress has got no moral right or they don't have any moral to talk about this because they are still continuing the alliance with the DMK.
The suicide bombing that killed Rajiv Gandhi in 1991 had claimed 14 other innocent lives. Dhanu, the human bomb, also died in the blast. The release of the convicts was widely criticized by the families of the victims. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now, right at the very top, is the Congress's legal eagle, senior lawyer and Rajya Sabha MP, Abhishek Singhvi. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Singhvi. How do you now see the centre's decision to seek a review of the Rajiv Gandhi convicts case, the manner in which they were let out, given the fact that you have in the past criticized the decision to allow the convicts to be freed, even as your own party leadership, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi have said they are more than happy to forgive them, to allow them to go. How do you respond to all the conflicting, in a way, statements that have emerged over this issue?
Let me clear a few misconceptions, Rajdeep. In principle, of course, we support any attempt to review and set aside what we believe is a fallacious decision. So in that sense, I think we support. But we have no hesitation in saying that the record of the Supreme Court says, the order itself shows, that the government of India was very slow, dilatory, and did not respond in time to the several opportunities given by the Supreme Court, and that led to part of the problem. But secondly, there is the common misconception which you must clear. Sonia Gandhi approached and made a statement only for one particular purpose. A pregnant lady or a lady with a child does not deserve death sentence, is what she said, and please commute it. From that, we have extrapolated a decision, quite amazingly, to a release from death to life for one person has been extrapolated to general release for all. That is never what either Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi said or did. Number three, look at, see, there's a point which I took about a week ago, as you know, and I'm glad that the government in India is now nibbling at around the periphery of the similar point or thought process. A Prime Minister of India, sitting or former, represents the sovereignty and integrity of India, irrespective of whether your color is X, my color is Y politically. That sovereignty or integrity of India is a national issue. You cannot release people merely because government A or government B, in this case Tamil Nadu government, says that they should be released. This is, all murders are bad, murders are all foul. But a murder, deliberate, careful, pre-planned and convicted up to the Supreme Court through several layers of a Prime Minister, former or current, is something which strikes at the root of the Indian nation's identity, sovereignty and integrity. That cannot lead to a release. And that's our fundamental objection. Of course, to use Article 142, Rajdeep, in a sense shows that the Supreme Court itself accepted that you cannot have a power to release. So they use the extraordinary power of 142, which alone the Supreme Court can use to virtually say that we are doing things which are not sanctioned by the law.
Dr. Singhvi, you mentioned there interestingly that no state government should be allowed to decide for itself that they want particular convicts to be released. But guess what? The Tamil Nadu government, which pushed for this, is headed by the DMK, of which your party, the Congress, is an ally. Now, how far can you go in distancing yourself from the Tamil Nadu, what the Tamil Nadu government was doing? The truth, some will say, Dr. Singhvi, you can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Be part of a power sharing arrangement in Tamil Nadu and yet claim that you disagree with what the government there has done.
No, Rajdeep, in a lighter vein, in the press conference I held, a similar question came and I said that if I can disagree with the honorable former president of the Congress, then certainly I would disagree with my ally, very valuable ally, very old association, but we don't agree on this point. We do not just consider how do you apply this ruling, how do you select whether Rajdeep is to be released, Singhvi is not to be released, how do you select demands from diverse states with similar things. There has to be a parameter. After all, there is a rule of law. There is absolutely no principle. You cannot, and that's why in fact the Supreme Court used 142. 142 is an admission that this is a special power used in a special way. But you know, you cannot justify it, and I certainly will not agree with the ally. I'm not agreeing with even Sonia Gandhi's interpretation or your interpretation of what Sonia Gandhi did. Of course, she only went to the extent of saying commute the sentence.
But, you know, Dr. Singhvi, the Supreme Court appears to have interestingly also made a distinction between the foreign nationals who've now been released, i.e. Sri Lankan nationals, and those who were released earlier who are Indian, and almost suggesting that the foreign nationals should not have been granted a remission of sentence, the Indians can. Does that make sense of you, since effectively they were all part of one conspiracy, it would seem, to assassinate the former Prime Minister? How do you make a distinction, foreign nationals versus Indians?
I entirely agree with you, and I disagree with this distinction without a difference or difference without a distinction. My point was made on a larger issue. Sovereignty and integrity of the nation is as much invocable and hurt with the Prime Minister or former Prime Minister's assassination, whether it is an Indian national who does it or a foreign national who does it. You cannot make this distinction. And secondly, this distinction also was not made by the government of India when there were parties in the Supreme Court. You are not a party, I am not a party. A political party cannot easily be a party in a criminal proceeding. It was the government of India which was heard, but they did not promptly respond, promptly file affidavits, did dilation, and did not take this point also. I believe the right point is a larger point of sovereignty and integrity of the nation, not limited to whether you are a foreign national or I'm Indian national.
Given that you're harping, Dr. Singhvi, that this is a case that involves the sovereignty, integrity of the nation, do you therefore expect the Supreme Court to review the decision, or do you believe that it's now too late? The centre itself has moved too late now. The convicts are effectively out.
Well, at least they have moved. I think they would have done better had they promptly been replying the affidavits in the court proceedings. Nobody can predict a Supreme Court judgment, but certainly it is an issue of wider ramifications. So I am hopeful that the court will see the wider aspects. You see, the problem is this becomes a precedent of sorts. That precedent of sorts can have very wide repercussions tomorrow. Forget this situation, state X will have a particular sympathy, state Y will have a particular sympathy. Tomorrow in the womb of the future, you may have very serious convicts who have been convicted at 3 layers of court hearings. You cannot handle it by simply saying that in one case we did it specially. Well, that case will apply to so many other cases, and that's very deleterious to rule of law, to fundamentals.
So effectively, Dr. Singhvi, what you're telling me is you believe that all those convicted in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case who are given a life sentence, life must mean life. Am I correct?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have gone further, and to that extent one can perhaps agree partly, although we did not quite agree directly, but that you may commute one sentence in the case of a woman from death to life. But that's very different from saying that life doesn't mean life. Life means X years, and you are out. En masse, in fact. You're out in large numbers.
Okay. I think you've been very clear, Dr. Singhvi, why you believe this case should have been reviewed in the first instance and the convicts not let out. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, appreciate your joining us. Let's take that debate forward. Rajiv Gandhi's killer's release, is it a case fit for a judicial review? Did the release in the first instance set a wrong precedent? Should life term in such cases mean the whole life? Why was the centre silent during the hearings? Aman Lekhi is former Additional Solicitor General who's worked under this government. Colin Gonsalves is senior advocate of the Supreme Court. A. Sarvanan is DMK spokesperson, and S.G. Surya, State Secretary of the Tamil Nadu BJP, joining us. I want to first get in the politicians to understand the politics playing out. A. Sarvananan, you might have just heard Abhishek Manu Singhvi very clear. They should not have been released. And yet, your Chief Minister, Mr. Stalin, is celebrating it, calling it a historic day.
Yes. Yeah, Rajdeep, it is correct. Our Chief Minister is celebrating it because this is a victory for federalism. The governor of the BJP, the governor sent by the BJP, has been putting spokes on the effective functioning of the state governments. The governors have been spoiling the democracy in the state of Tamil Nadu. He has been sitting on this file for the last 4 years. And that is why the Supreme Court said the governor has enormously delayed this and they have released him.
No, but it's not about the governor. Dr. Singhvi is making the larger point that this is a conspiracy that involved the assassination of a former prime minister, affected the integrity and unity of the country. You cannot have individual states for their partisan political ends asking for release.
No. Yeah, Rajdeep, I think I would say that is a very narrow view. It is presumptive. It's very presumptive. It presumes that the state government does not have any role to play on the national security or national sovereignty. I think Mr. Singhvi will accept to this.
But what was, let's be honest, do you really believe that people who are deeply involved in the conspiracy should be let off?
Yes, I'm coming to that, Rajdeep. See, this is not without precedent. This is not the first time this has happened. Our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, was killed by an assassin, by a conspiracy. The conspirator, Gopal Vinayak Godse, was released by remission after spending 20 years in prison. If that can happen to Mahatma Gandhi, we are asking on a humanitarian ground. There is nothing more to it, no politics to it. The reason we have sought for the release of these killers is that they have stayed at death row for 10 years, for 10 long years. Tell me who in the country has stayed at death row? What more torture can you inflict upon them? And they have spent 30 years. This is purely based on humanitarian grounds. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi, I want to put it on record, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has said he has forgiven. He has forgiven all of them who were involved. This apart, let me come to it, Rajdeep. If I am a congressman, if my leader was killed the same way, I would feel the same anguish. That apart, we have legal system, we have precedents for what has happened, we have Article 161. So they are saying make Article 161 redundant by just this one magic word, national security, state sovereignty. It is not acceptable in a federal setup.
Okay, you made your point, Mr. Sarvanan, very strongly. S.G. Surya, State Secretary, Tamil Nadu BJP, do you agree with what the centre now is doing, asking for a review?
Can I respond to points made by Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi? He said there is a lukewarm response from the central government in dealing with the case. Going back to the history, in 2001, after their conviction, these people who are released now, they applied for the mercy petition. And the decision on the mercy petition was taken in the year 2011. So the very reason for the remission of death sentence to life sentence is because of the inordinate delay by the president and the central government which were in power during the time, which means directly the UPA. So my question is, why did it take so long for the UPA government to delay the decision in rejecting the mercy petition when their president was installed in this country? Secondly, the death sentence was commuted to life sentence on February 2014 when the UPA government was still in place. The very moment the death sentence becomes life sentence, it became very clear that they will be released one day because they were not convicted for terrorism charges, but they were convicted only on under 302 for murder. So it was very clear. So my question is...
So why is the BJP now seeking a review then?
No. BJP is not seeking the review. Rajib, Centre is seeking the review because the Centre says they were not a party to it when the remission decision was taken by the Supreme Court. The central government feels that it should be a party because it should not set a wrong precedent.
So
when
you're seemingly you're suggesting that this review is only procedural. Let me get the legal points of view for a moment. First, you, Aman Lekhi, do you agree with what the centre has done? Was there an inevitability, given the fact that according to some it sets a very dangerous precedent that the centre is not even a party to a case like this?
No, I find the ground taken by the centre absolutely incomprehensible. Ravi Chandran follows the order in Pirarivaran, and the Government of India was the party in that particular case. That order was rendered in May, and despite being rendered in May and that being the basis of the subsequent order, inexplicably, there's been no review which has been filed against that order. The review has been filed only now, firstly. Secondly, it's manifestly wrong. The first order of the Supreme Court is manifestly wrong because first, I have a reservation that the governor could at all have entertained it, but presuming the governor could have actually entertained it, there are three things which are absolutely incorrect in this particular order. The first is that the Supreme Court could not have decided. This is, as far as commuting is concerned, the executive power. Neither the judiciary or the legislature got any role to play in it. So there is no occasion for the judiciary to intervene for the purposes of commuting the sentence or releasing the people, because this is extraneous. This is something which is constitutionally forbidden, firstly, and this stares us in the face. Secondly, the court referred to the period of detention to say they've already spent 30 years in prison. Because they spent 30 years in prison, therefore we are entitled to release. Now, this is not a question of bail. Because it's not a question of bail, the period of detention is relevant because the sentence is life, and life means normal life of a person. So even if it's 40 years, that's no ground at all for the purposes of releasing. And thirdly, most importantly, the circumstances they refer to is the conduct in jail. The conduct in jail is, in my opinion, irrelevant because the act in question was one of complete depravity, and correctly, which was mentioned by the Congress, entailed the assassination of the Prime Minister involving elements who are not Indian nationals, and the very gravity of the crime mandated that as far as those who have committed it should remain in custody.
So you're saying life should have been life in a case given the nature of the crime committed. Colin Gonsalves, how do you respond? As someone, you've always been against the death sentence. Do you believe life could have been life in a case like this?
Well, I think we missed the point in the debate completely. Just a few months ago, in Perarivalan's case, everything that was argued on your program today was argued before the Supreme Court. This was a terrorist offense. This was an attack on the Indian nation. Therefore, the central government, if it were a terrorist offense, the central government would certainly have a right to poke its nose in the matter. But the Supreme Court in Perarivalan's case said, looking at the judgment in Nalini's case, looking at the judgment that was delivered many years ago, noticed that all these persons were acquitted of the terrorism charge under UAPA. So there was no terrorism charge left. There was no so-called attack on the nation to be discussed. All that remained is the murder of a person, 302. And in a 302 case, unlike a terrorism case where the central government can say, I want to be heard, in a simple murder case, 302 case, the central government has no role to play, said the Supreme Court a few months ago. And so today, you can't repeat the same argument because we have a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court in Perarivalan's case saying the jurisdiction will lie exclusively with the state government. And I applaud the state government for fighting against a very cruel stand that all these gentlemen are taking to keep people in jail after 32 years of imprisonment. Cruelty, extreme cruelty. And I applaud them for taking the stand. And I want to end by saying the central government will learn a lesson. The people of Tamil Nadu will not treat this as a simple murder case or anything like that. They will take this as a matter of Tamil pride, and it will be a major political issue in the years to come and in the elections. And the central government will learn that by pushing ahead with this cruel stand, they will be taught a lesson in the elections.
Yeah, but I could turn around, Colin Gonsalves, and say, if you remember a few months ago when Bilkis Banu's rapists and murderers were released after spending 15 years in jail, there were those who said, you need life is life. So, we need clarity on what is the basis when you are going to remit a sentence. This is a conspiracy to assassinate the Prime Minister of the country.
Not Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, and the Supreme Court made a very important distinction. As far as the Supreme Court was concerned, they said a former Prime Minister is like any citizen of the country. No more, no less. You may disagree with the judgment.
Aman Lekhi, you want to respond?
Many years.
Yes.
Aman Lekhi, you want to respond to that?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I do. I mean, with all due respect, Mr. Colin Gonsalves is wrong. It's not that simple. As far as 302 is concerned, the argument is because it's not Tata, therefore Centre has got no role. Because 302, the state, this is a misreading of Sriharan. The judgment which has been rendered in Perari Varan interprets Sriharan in a manner which is incorrect. In the case at hand, notwithstanding 302, ideally, it should have been the central government, considering the circumstances of the case, more so because in so far as the power under 161 is concerned, has to be read at 435 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, because this matter was investigated by an agency which is a central agency. And therefore, presuming the state government has got the power, the state government doesn't have exclusive power. The state government has to act along with the central government, conceding that the state government has the authority.
Yes, but Mr. Lekhi, for 6 months, the centre did not act. The fact is, if the centre did not act for 6 months, you can't suddenly wake up one day and say, oh, we are reviewing the judgment.
Absolutely correct. What the centre has done is not correct at all. I said at the outset itself, the order was passed in May. The order on which the subsequent order is passed in May, inexplicably, despite the fact the Government of India was participating in those hearings, was represented to the Solicitor General and Additional Solicitor General. Notwithstanding the order, there was no review filed of that order, and only a subsequent order which is premised on the previous order review is filed, and that too belatedly. As far as the conduct the Government of India is concerned, the conduct the Government of India and so far the bona fides is concerned and sincerity in filing a review is in clear doubt. And the government which is being made in a review application that they were not a party, in my opinion, is complete hogwash.
Okay.
Because the Government of India has been a party into these proceedings from the year 2014 and is specifically a party in the Perari Varan case. So the government cannot possibly say it did not know. In any case, it's in public domain. And the government could have in any ways intervened, presuming it did not know, which I don't buy.
But, let's be also clear. And I think, Colin, you can, before I come to the politicians, just give clarity on that. Across the world, the global trend in jurisprudence is now for reducing the maximum period in detention, often to a single-digit figure. US and UK academic trends favoring a maximum of around 7 years, often 9 years. Do you believe, therefore, that this sets a precedent? God forbid something like this happens tomorrow. Do you believe that every case should be seen differently, or is this to be a precedent for the future? I am involved in a conspiracy to assassinate the former Prime Minister, and I get a very definite finite period in jail.
Well, it's as simple as this. If it was a murder case, as the Supreme Court held many years ago, Justice K.T. Thomas's judgment, if it was a murder case, they would get out 14 years minimum, and after that, the state government can act and remit the sentence. Now, as compared to 14 years, which was a possibility in this case, you have 33 years, which is total barbarism for any democratic
So what according to you would be a maximum punishment? That according to you fits the crime?
If you take parts of Europe, for the most heinous crime, terrorist crimes, like bombs, blowing up trains and so on, it would be approximately 25 years would be the limit. And I think India must look at its reviewing and sentencing policy, because it's a very hard point of view. It's a very cruel point of view to keep a human being in jail for 33 years. And in Perari Valan's case, he was put in when he was 19. He was a college student and he was making batteries for his science class. And they came and grabbed those batteries and said, this is the battery that you use for the bomb. And he was in a cinema hall, for God's sake, when they came and arrested him. 19 years, a young man at 19. And now he's 33 years have passed. Cruelty, unmitigated cruelty.
You're calling it unmitigated cruelty.
I applaud the Tamil Nadu government for the courage in saying they must be released.
Aman Lekhi, is it unmitigated cruelty to put someone in jail for 33 years?
Absolutely not. In fact, then you have to actually undo the IPC, ignore the provision of the IPC. We define life. Life is the natural tenure of one person's foray on earth. If you call the life imprisonment in that way, then the Supreme Court has actually upheld life imprisonment. Life imprisonment is life. Remission is not a matter of right. It goes to discretion. And discretion is not something which should be exercised in a matter like this. So the question of it being barbaric doesn't disregard the provisions of the law and ignores the fact that the sentence which has been of life is one which is warranted in law. As long as warranted in law and the law stands, merely our description, it's barbaric for 35 years will not stand.
Okay, can I get you, Mr. Saravanan? What will the role that the Tamil Nadu government will presumably implead if the Supreme Court chooses to review this case? That you all will implead and maintain your stand in the court?
Yeah, no, see, whatever we have stated earlier, our stand stays firm. We are not going to prevaricate because we have been asking for this release for so long. See, in 2015, the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court has clearly stated that there are no charges under terrorism of the Tata Act. They have been convicted simpliciter 302. So only the state government has the authority to release them or not to release them. And that authority has been exercised. Now, look at the way the BJP is acting. When it is coming to Gujarat Bilkis Banu's case, immediately the union government says, yes, okay, release them, no problem. Rape, murder, no problem at all. 15 years only, release them. But here, the governor sent by the BJP wantonly for political gains, for political gimmickry, held on to those files for 4 years. They blew a death knell to state autonomy, to federal structure for constitution. If there is one thing BJP is very adept, that is using the office of the governor. That is what they did here.
Can I get a final word therefore from my BJP guest, Mr. Saravanan? You want to respond one final time to what you are hearing from the DMK? They are saying that now suddenly you've woken up and you called for a review of this particular case. What were you all doing all these months?
No. See, in the May when Perarivalan was released, he was felicitated by the Chief Minister with the shawl and he was hugged. I think it is a wrong precedent for any chief minister to send out to this country that you can kill the former prime minister and come and hug the chief minister. So again, today you have problem when, there is another life convict who goes to the Supreme Court and says they had killed 15 people, I killed only one person. So you please release me also on the same grounds. So we are worried with whatever is happening. So I think the review petition should give answers to all these questions.
No, but is the Tamil Nadu BJP very clear that they want these convicts to go back in jail? Are you clear about that?
It all depends on the Supreme Court, Rajdeep.
They don't have
we do not have a
Rajdeep,
stand.
can I come in, Rajdeep,
At the end of the day, when the Supreme Court says we have nothing to say, our stand doesn't matter in front of the Supreme Court. So that
so
is how
you will wait to see what the court does. Yes, Mr. Saravanan, a final word.
Yeah. See, this is about Mr. Perarivalan. This is what Mr. Gonsalves was talking about. Unmitigated disaster. The investigating officer with regard to Mr. Perarivalan went on record, filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court, stated that he wantonly, intentionally recorded the statement wrongly so that Perarivalan would be convicted. So that is why Perarivalan is different from all others. So let us not mix all of them and paint everybody with the same brush. But of course, the Supreme Court did not consider that. That was one of the reasons for the early release of Mr. Perarivalan.
Okay, let me leave it there. Yeah. It is a complex case. It is a case which, of course, shocked the nation and at the time itself and beyond. But at the same time, it raises several questions of jurisprudence. Should life be life? Should it be commuted? What are the conditions under which commutation should take place? Is it cruelty to keep someone in jail for 30 years or more, or is the gravity of the crime such that you cannot allow people to be let off? Lots of questions which hopefully will be answered by the Supreme Court in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. To my guests, thank you so much for joining me here on the news today. Let's turn from there to the other case that continues to send shockwaves, the spine-chilling and mind-numbing details in the Shraddha murder case. It now turns out that Shraddha often used to share the horror of abuse that Aftab inflicted on her with her friends. She apparently was living with this brutality from years. The SOSs she sent were too many to be ignored. Today, people close to her share her ordeal. Take a look.
Shraddha Walker feared for her life. She confided in friends, saying she was in an abusive relationship. Her relationship with Aftab changed completely once she left home. Aftab was not only suspicious but also very aggressive.
एक बार ऐसा भी झगड़ा हुआ था जब उसने मुझे व्हाट्सएप पे ऐसा मैसेज करके बोला कि प्लीज यहाँ मेरे घर पे आ जा, मुझे बाहर लेके जा, अगर आज रात को मैं इसके साथ घर पे रही तो ये मुझे मार डालेगा। ऐसा भी झगड़ा हुआ है उनके बीच में।
Her friends recall after being assaulted, Shraddha called up a friend asking him to rescue her. She said she wanted to leave immediately or Aftab would kill her. In fact, her friends not only rescued her but also warned Aftab not to hit her.
The surprising thing is, in spite this toxic relationship, in spite Shraddha herself wanting to get out of this, she was unable to. I think there was something very, very, very big brewing inside that we are not informed about.
According to her friends, Aftab apologized for having assaulted Shraddha and she forgave him. However, source of tension between the two remained. Police officials privy to investigations say Aftab continued to keep in touch with other women on a dating app on his mobile phone, and this angered Shraddha. But was that the trigger for the latest fight? And her murder remains the subject of investigation. With Arvind Ojha in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
And we'll have more on that case at 10 p.m. tonight with Gaurav Sawant. Let's turn from there to tonight's election story, which comes from Vadnagar, the town which was made famous because it is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's hometown. More importantly, Mr. Modi claimed that he used to sell tea at a local railway station there during his childhood. But several people now feel that unemployment and price rise are such key problems in Vadnagar that issues relating to the past have been forgotten. It's now about getting Vadnagar's young employment. Devankur Wadhwan with today's Gujarat election trail story.
Vadnagar railway station. It's here that Prime Minister Narendra Modi sold tea as a child to help his family. But the original tea stall is long gone. Locals in Vadnagar say the original chai shop where young Narendra Modi used to work has been uprooted and taken to Delhi, where it will be put up in a museum. In its place, a new shop is set to open.
असली वाली दिल्ली ले गए, उसकी जगह ये रेप्लिका छोड़ गए हैं।
डुप्लीकेट दूसरा बनवाया है ना।
ये कब की बात है, कब लेकर चले गए?
लगे 2-3 महीने तक हो गए।
2-3 महीने हो गए।
Passengers say there is no functional tea stall at the railway station anymore. To get a cup of tea or food, one has to go outside the station.
नहीं, चाय की कोक भी नहीं। चाय पीना जाना तो बाहर जाना पड़ता है।
बाहर जाना पड़ता है।
Vadnagar cherishes its association with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Many here say development in Vadnagar began after Modi came to power in Gujarat.
तो सब भाजपा ने सब अच्छा किया है, सब वो खड़े हैं वो भी भाजपा से लिए है ना।
कोई मुद्दा नहीं है आपके साथ?
अभी सही है, सब भाजपा जो भी करती है वो सही करती है।
महंगाई नहीं है बिल्कुल?
महंगाई है नहीं, लेकिन महंगाई तो उसका भी सॉल्यूशन आ जाएगा साहब जी, हम तो खुश हैं।
पर पूरे रेलवे स्टेशन पे कोई कैंटीन नहीं है अभी। जो
यार रेलवे ही बंद था ना, तो कैंटीन कहाँ से शुरू होगी? रेलवे ही मोदी साहब ने 3 तारीख से शुरू की है, तो अभी तो आगे और भी सुविधा होगी। कैंटीन नहीं, नाश्ता पानी सब यहाँ पे मिलेगा।
People in Vadnagar say unemployment and price rise are a major issue which are currently plaguing the state.
महंगाई तो देखिए वो बोलने का है, बेरोजगारी तो बरसों से था, रहेगा और बोलना है, क्वेश्चन खड़ा करना है, लेकिन डेवलपमेंट देखना पड़ता है। आज गुजरात में सिक्योरिटी प्रॉब्लम कुछ नहीं है, आज रात को 12 बजे भी चाहिए ना, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, इतना बढ़िया है गुजरात। रात को 12 बजे.
Importantly, people believe that there are inflation, price rise, unemployment are issues, but some feel that a viable alternative for the BJP is at least currently not present for them. With camera person Nikhil, Devankur Vadhavan in Vadnagar for India Today.
No anti-incumbency in that sense against Mr. Modi, at least in his hometown. Let's take a break. On the other side, you're seeing the big breaking news. The BCCI has sacked all the selectors of the Indian cricket team. We'll have that breaking news. Plus, the historic moment for India. The country's first privately developed rocket Vikram launched from Sriharikota successfully. Those behind it will be joining me tonight on the News Today. News without the noise.
Armed with facts, she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories. From every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.
Okay, the big breaking story coming in. The Indian Cricket Board, BCCI, has sacked the entire cricket selection committee headed by Chetan Sharma. The selectors have been sacked after the team's poor performance at the T20 World Cup, where they lost in the semi-finals. The BCCI will now set up a new selection committee. Sacked members cannot be picked at least for 2 years. The big question, have the selectors been made the fall guys? After all, the BCCI seemed to have full confidence in them till only the other day. What's happened, Nikhil Naz? Suddenly the BCCI believes the selectors are responsible for what's gone wrong in Australia?
Well,
okay,
there were a few selection issues at the World Cup. I know there's a lot of post-mortem happening now and discussion on took the right team to the World Cup. Now that's happened in a row.
Okay, we'll try and reconnect with Nikhil. But the big question, of course, is why did the BCCI suddenly wake up and blame the selectors? Was the BCCI on board with the selection? What exactly in this team has left the BCCI in a position where you've sacked the selectors? Is the real problem the need to reset and reboot the way T20 teams are picked in this country? And will a new selection committee change the way T20 teams are picked? So are the selectors the fall guys is a question that will continue to be raised. It's a story that we will keep tracking. Okay, let's turn from there to happier news. Vikram S, India's first privately developed rocket, successfully lifted off from the spaceport in Sriharikota today, marking the foray of the private sector into the country's space industry, dominated so far by ISRO for decades. It's the first private rocket launch taking place in India. Take a look.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Event number 96 completed.
And we have a successful liftoff of Vikram S rocket. In a few seconds,
A historic day for Indian space industry.
aerodynamic pressure followed by the motor burnout, and we will get you those
India's first privately developed rocket, Vikram S, was launched successfully by ISRO from Sriharikota's Satish Dhawan Space Center.
Remind the viewers.
The rocket, developed by private sector firm Skyroot, was launched with 3 customer payloads into space, touching an altitude of over 90 kilometers, gaining a speed of Mach 5. That's 5 times the speed of sound.
One of the key customers would be communication customers, where like people building communication satellites, either for internet of things from space, internet from space, and also like for communications for television, etc., etc. So that is one segment of the market. The other segment is Earth observation. That's where like the cameras are put on the satellites and they click images from space, and then this is a lot of mapping, weather prediction, and several other analytics can be generated from remote sensing satellites.
What we are doing is catering to the launch segment, where most of the satellite operators who are trying to render such services in a cost-effective manner to their customer have a bottleneck of high cost of launching to space. And our the vision with which we started is basically to be able to achieve a low-cost space access solution company. So where most of our customers are enabled to provide such services to the world.
The successful launch of Vikram S marks the entry of the private sector into the Indian space program, which has so far remained government-controlled and funded. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the launch bears testimony to the talent of Indian youth.
It is indeed a new beginning, a new dawn, and shall I say, very appropriately as our team members have put it, a new prarambh in the journey of India's space program.
I think it's a historical day, not simply because what got launched today. In fact, what got launched today was a simple rocket. But the fact that private sector has come this far to be able to prepare a rocket completely on their own, to have it reviewed by ISRO experts, InSpace experts, and get certified and authorized to launch is a milestone.
Skyroot says the launch vehicle met all mission parameters, setting the stage for the launch of the Vikram 1 rocket next year. The entry of the private sector, Persianing with Indian companies, puts it on a path towards programs like those in the United States, Europe and China. With Pramod Madhav in Sriharikota, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, and we spoke to the two people behind it. Pawan and Vikram join us now on the show tonight. Congratulations on the successful launch of Vikram S. Tell us first about the rocket, its capabilities, what it does.
Yeah, so Vikram S is a suborbital vehicle. So it will, it goes to above 80 kilometers in altitude and splashes back into the sea with, test payloads. We're testing a lot of systems during the flight. So it has, it goes from the liftoff till the splashdown. It stays in flight for around 300 seconds. It can lift a payload of up to 80 kilograms. And, today we have done the flight at 11:30 a.m., which has become an historic flight for the country as being the first private company or the first private rocket to launch to space.
Now, Vikram S is a suborbital rocket. You want to explain to us what that means? How is it different from an orbital rocket, which I believe this is the next one you're planning? Vikram 1, we are told, is an orbital rocket.
Yeah. So orbit is anything where a satellite is launched with a particular velocity so that it sustains to stay in that orbit for a long period of time. So that requires large amount of energy, and the rockets are generally quite big. That's what Vikram 1 is. And while Vikram S is a smaller vehicle,
which is around 6 meters tall. And so this is the core, the core objective of this is to test almost 80% of the technology on the orbital vehicle with a low cost, platform or the low cost suborbital vehicle. So what suborbital does is that it goes to a particular altitude, and then like splashes back to the sea. It doesn't stay in orbit, but comes back and splashes down the sea. But during this duration is when we can test a lot of our hardware, also a lot and our customer payloads as well. So in a nutshell, orbit is something which will sustain for a long period of time, and suborbit is something which will stay for a very brief period and falls back to the sea.
Fascinating. Naga Bharat Dhaka, Vikram S, a single stage rocket. How is a single stage rocket now different from a multi-stage one? And will now private sector like you be developing multi-stage rockets as well?
Yeah, so as previously explained, a single stage rocket is possible only when we are not only when in a suborbital mission like what we have done today. To achieve an orbital velocities, we generally need multiple rocket stages to be able to achieve the velocities required to insert a satellite into orbit. So the mission we have done today is being a suborbital mission. For the requirements of our mission, we are able to achieve this with single stage solid rocket motor.
One advantage that India's space program has in a way on the rest of the world, it appears, is affordability. Can you tell us how much did Vikram S cost?
Yeah, so the Vikram S cost details are confidential, but the Vikram S, whatever vehicle we build, it will be like way at least a 50% less cost than similar vehicles of the class built either in the Western countries.
One final question: how much of this has been made possible because of the support of ISRO? ISRO has had this track record of building its own indigenous rockets. Did ISRO have a role in design and development of Vikram S as well?
Yeah, so ISRO do not have the role in design and development of the rocket, but it has a role in the launch of the rocket. In fact, we are using the launch pads and the communication radar infrastructure from Sriharikota or from the Satish Dhawan Space Center of ISRO was used for the launch. However, the design and development is completely done by Skyroot. So basically, the partnership is more about utilizing their launch facilities for our launch.
Now, one of the reasons why there's so much of excitement is that this is the first Indian private sector firm to launch a rocket. Big global names, SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, hitting the global headlines with their space tourism projects. I think a question that people would want to know, is space tourism now also on the cards in India?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we in the future, using reusable vehicles, space tourism becomes pretty much a norm. However, we are also working towards it. But of course, in the early phases, in few years, it could be totally possible.
The global space economy is pegged, we are told, at about $360 billion, could touch $1 trillion according to some analysts. What is this market that you are now eyeing? Domestic, international, or a bit of both?
Currently, the space launch market, I mean to say, majority of our customers to a satellite launch provider like us are currently based abroad, like a foreign market outside India, non-domestic market type per se. 90% of our customers would be based in USA and European markets, but we do see an emerging trend in the domestic market. Non-governmental companies like us, our fellow space startups in India, have been emerging and who have potential to be our customers in the future.
But what about investments? Has it been easy to find for projects like yours? What has been your experience in finding investors? Hello, Pawan? Okay, we're having problems.
Challenging,
yeah, go ahead.
As always, because we need a lot of capital for developing and proving the technology itself. So that way, it has been always a challenge. But of course, we're able to break the ceiling at each stage. We are able to, close to 526 crores as on date, which is the highest in the Indian space sector.
A final question: successful launch of Vikram calls for a celebration. So how do rocket scientists celebrate their success?
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to celebrate yet, and tonight we'll be spending time with our team. Leisure itself is a celebration for us. After all the late nights and the long hours we have spent, our team has spent over the last few weeks.
Well, enjoy your success, celebrate it. Wonderful to hear some good news, and that's our good news today's story, the team behind Vikram S. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Just about enough time to leave you with a correction that we wish to make, because in last night's program, India Today mistakenly used in one of its graphics Make My Trip's layoff figures from 2020. Make My Trip has since clarified there have been no layoffs that the company has made in 2022. The error is regretted. Okay, that's it on the show tonight. Have a great weekend. Stay well, stay safe. Good night. Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.